The beast in the cages. The room was dark and cold. Blue lights blinked on the walls. A heavy metal door stood between the visitors and the most dangerous creature on the planet. Captain Arla stood in front of the viewing glass, her arms crossed. Her green eyes narrowed as she stared at the beast inside the cage. It was huge, twice the size of a full-grown warrior. Its body was covered in thick black fur. Its claws could cut through steel. Its teeth were longer than a human's fingers. Glowing red eyes watched from the shadows. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. Arla turned to the human standing next to her. "You asked to see it, here it is. The apex predator of our world. We call it Karthal." Jacob stepped forward. He was a tall man with a calm face. His eyes were quiet, thoughtful. "It looks angry," he said. "No," Arla replied. "It looks hungry." A soldier behind them laughed. "You humans think you can understand everything. This thing isn't a pet. It's killed dozens. No one gets near it and lives." Jacob said nothing. He looked at the creature again. Slowly, he placed his hand on the glass. The beast moved. It didn't growl. It didn't charge. It took one step closer to the glass and stopped. Its red eyes stared into Jacob's. Everyone in the room froze. "What's it doing?" one of the guards asked. "I don't know," Arla said, confused. Jacob smiled very softly. "It's curious." "You should step back," Arla warned. "It might attack." But Jacob didn't move. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, dried meat. He pressed it against the glass. The beast tilted its head. Then slowly it sat down. Gasps filled the room. "No one has ever made it sit," Arla said, shocked. "I've seen creatures like this before," Jacob said. "Not exactly the same, but close. Back on Earth we had wild wolves. They were feared too. But some people made friends with them." Arla laughed. "You're saying this beast could be a friend?" Jacob looked at her. "I'm saying it doesn't have to be your enemy." Just then the beast rose and stepped forward again. The glass between them hissed. The temperature sensors blinked. The guards raised their guns. "Step away," Arla shouted. But Jacob didn't move. The beast slowly pressed its nose to the glass, right where Jacob's hand was. The room went silent again. Arla lowered her weapon. Her eyes were wide with confusion and disbelief. Jacob finally stepped back. "I want to go inside the cage." "You've lost your mind?" Arla said. "I'm serious," Jacob replied. "Let me in." "We don't even send robots in there anymore. Last time we tried, it tore one apart in seconds." "I'm not a robot." "No, you're a human. A very fragile one." Jacob smiled. "But I'm also the first one it didn't try to kill." Arla looked at the beast. It was now pacing back and forth slowly, watching Jacob's every move. "You have no weapons," she said. "If it attacks, then I die," Jacob interrupted. "But I don't think it will." "Why are you doing this?" Jacob looked at her, then at the creature. "Because no one ever asked what it wants. Maybe it's tired of being a prisoner. Maybe it's just lonely." Silence. Arla looked at the other guards. They shook their heads. This was crazy. Stupid. Impossible, but still, the beast had not shown any sign of aggression. "I'll take responsibility," Jacob said firmly. "If it kills me, it's on me." Arla hesitated. Every part of her training told her to say no. But something in her gut said yes. She finally nodded. "Fine. But one wrong move, and we shut the door forever." Jacob walked slowly toward the cage. The doors opened with a heavy hiss. Cold air rushed out. The beast stood still. He stepped. In one step, 2, 10. The door closed behind him. Now there was nothing between them. Arla watched from behind the glass. Her heart raced. The beast moved first. It walked up to Jacob. Claws clicked on the metal floor. Its eyes locked on him. Jacob didn't move. The beast leaned close, then sniffed him. 1 second passed. 2, 3. Then, It sat down again. Arla gasped. Jacob slowly took out the meat and offered it. The beast opened its mouth, rows of deadly teeth, and gently took the food. It chewed, slowly, calmly. Jacob smiled, and Arla whispered, "By the stars, he tamed it." But deep down, she knew. This was just the beginning. Why didn't it kill him? Captain Arla could not sleep that night. She kept replaying the scene in her head, over and over again. The human had entered the cage. The Carthul, their most feared predator, could have ripped him in half. But it didn't. It ate from his hand. Like a trained beast, it sat beside him like a loyal pet. No one could understand it. No one wanted to. But Arla needed answers. The next morning, she marched straight to the human's quarters. She found Jacob sitting cross-legged on the floor, tinkering with a small device, something human-made. "You're lucky to be alive," she said sharply. Jacob looked up and smiled. "Good morning to you too." "This isn't a joke, Jacob. That creature could have killed you in seconds. But it didn't," he said calmly. "Because I didn't show fear. I showed trust." Arla folded her arms. "No alien, no scientist, no warrior ever made it behave like that. Not even close. What did you do?" "I listened," Jacob replied. "Listened? It doesn't speak." Jacob shook his head. "Not with words, but body language, sounds, eyes. Those tell stories. I watched it. I learned its rhythm." Arla stared at him. "You're telling me you understood it? In one day?" Jacob leaned back. "I didn't need to. I just needed it to know I wasn't a threat." Arla paused, thinking. "Still, it's dangerous. The Council will never accept this. They're already discussing putting it down for safety." Jacob's face darkened. "You can't kill something just because you don't understand it." "It's not about understanding," she replied. "It's about survival." Jacob stood. "If you kill it, you'll lose more than you realize. That creature is intelligent. It responded to kindness. That means it has a mind, a soul, maybe." Arla didn't know what to say. In her world, beasts were beasts. But this human saw something more. Later that day, a meeting was held in the station's high chamber. Arla stood with Jacob before the alien leaders. The High Council of Tarvak. "Explain. What happened?" the elder commander demanded. Arla nodded and spoke firmly. The Carthul showed restraint. The human walked into the cage. The beast did not attack. It accepted food and sat peacefully. Gasps filled the chamber. "Impossible," one shouted. "This is a trick." "Maybe the human used a drug," another growled. Jacob stepped forward. "I didn't drug it, I treated it with respect, that's all." "You expect us to believe that?" the elder snapped. "That you tamed it with kindness?" "No," Jacob said. "I didn't tame it. I earned its trust." The room fell quiet. Then the elder commander leaned forward. "You say it trusts?" "You. Then you'll prove it." Jacob narrowed his eyes. "How?" The elder smirked. "Tomorrow, you will take the beast outside, into the open zone. If it remains calm, we'll consider your words. If not, we will destroy it." Arla's heart sank. It was a trap. The open zone was wide and full of soldiers. One wrong move and the beast would be shot down instantly. Back in her office, Arla paced the floor. "They're trying to scare it. Push it until it reacts." Jacob sat quietly. "I know." "Then why agree?" He looked at her. "Because this is the only chance to prove it's not a monster." She sighed. "I still don't understand. Why do this? It's not your species, not your planet." Jacob looked her in the eyes. "Because I've seen what fear does. I've seen good things destroyed just because someone didn't take the time to understand them. I won't let that happen again." Arla stared at him. For the first time, she didn't see him as just a human. She saw him as something else, something rare, someone willing to stand beside a monster and see its pain. The next day came fast. Crowds gathered near the open zone. Soldiers stood ready, guns loaded, eyes sharp. The heavy gate opened with a loud hiss. The beast stepped out, its eyes searching. Then Jacob walked beside it. Arla held her breath. One wrong step, one sudden move. But the Carthel stayed calm. It sniffed the wind, looked at the sky, then walked beside Jacob like a companion. The crowd was silent. One small child whispered, "It looks happy." Suddenly a soldier sneezed, loud and sudden. The beast turned sharply, eyes flashing red. Guns rose instantly. "Don't!" Arla screamed. Jacob stepped in front of it. "Easy, easy." The beast looked at him and calmed down. It looked back at the soldier, then turned away. The tension broke. Cheers erupted. For the first time in years, the predator had walked free and harmed no one. Arla whispered to herself, why didn't it kill him? But she already knew the answer. Jacob hadn't tamed it, he had reached it, and now everything was about to change. Secrets in the jungle, the alien jungle, was alive. Strange blue trees reached toward the sky like claws. Insects with glowing wings buzzed in clouds. The air smelled of smoke, soil, and something ancient. Captain Arla followed Jacob through the thick undergrowth. Behind them, the Carthel padded silently, its heavy paws leaving deep marks in the soft ground. Arla kept glancing back. "It still scares you," Jacob said without turning. "I'd be stupid if it didn't," she replied. "It ate one of our tanks," Jacob chuckled. "It also helped carry your injured scout 2 days ago." Arla didn't argue. That part was true, but it didn't make sense. The Carthel was supposed to be a wild beast, born to kill, yet now it followed the human like a guardian. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To where I first met it," Jacob said. "There's something I need to show you." Arla pushed aside glowing vines and stepped into a clearing, and stopped. In the center stood a half-buried stone structure, old, covered in moss and alien roots. It didn't look like anything she'd seen on this planet before. "What is this place?" she asked. "I don't know," Jacob said softly. "But it's not from your people." Arla walked closer, brushing away the dirt from one of the stone walls. She froze. Etched into the surface was a symbol, a human symbol. Her breath caught in her throat. "That can't be," she whispered. "Humans only arrived in this sector a few years ago." Jacob nodded. "That's what we thought. But I found this long before I reached your cities." "But how?" "I think humans were here before, a long time ago." Arla turned slowly to look at the beast. It sat near the edge of the ruins, silent, almost respectful. Jacob continued, "When I first came here, I was injured. I crawled into this structure to rest. I expected to die. And the Carthel, it found me. It could have killed me right then, but it didn't. It watched me. Left food. I don't know why. Maybe it remembered something." "Remembered?" Arla blinked. "You're saying it knew humans before?" "Maybe not humans like me," Jacob said, "but something close. Something it trusted. Something that once lived here." They explored the ruins deeper. Carvings along the walls showed tall figures, not aliens like Arla, but not fully human either. Warriors, scientists, families. Some were shown standing beside creatures that looked like the Carthel. "They lived together," Jacob said, tracing one of the images with his fingers. "They weren't just using these beasts, they bonded with them." Arla's mind raced. This changed everything. For generations, her people feared the Carthel, hunted it, caged it. But maybe the Carthel were never wild monsters. Maybe they were just waiting for the right voice. "I need to show this to the council," she said. "They won't believe it," Jacob replied. "Not yet. But this is history. Proof that we misunderstood these creatures for centuries. And they don't want to admit that," Jacob said. "They'll say it's human lies, or that we faked it." Arla sighed. So, what do we do? Jacob looked back at the beast. It sat by a stone archway looking up at the sky. We protect it, he said, and we learn more, piece by piece. Suddenly the Carthel stood. Its ears twitched. Its body stiffened. Then it growled, a low, deep sound that made the trees tremble. What is it? Arla asked, hand reaching for her blaster. Jacob grabbed her arm. Don't move. From the jungle, rustling sounds grew louder. Then, shadows. Figures stepped out. Not soldiers, not animals. Something else. They were tall and covered in gray armor, faces hidden behind masks, eyes glowing orange. They weren't from this world. Arla stepped back. Who are they? Jacob narrowed his eyes. Not from any species I know. The creatures raised weapons. The Carthul roared. In a flash it leapt forward, faster than a missile. It hit the nearest armored attacker with full force, crushing it to the ground. Blasters lit up the jungle. Jacob pulled Arla behind a stone wall. Get down! Arla fired her weapon. One attacker fell. Two more charged forward. The Carthul tore through them like lightning. But there were too many. We're outnumbered, Arla shouted. Jacob looked at the carvings, the story on the walls. Then, he looked at the beast. We need to trust it. What? Let it lead. It knows this place. As if it heard him, the Carthul roared again and dashed into the jungle. It paused once, looking back. Then it vanished. Jacob grabbed Arla's hand. Follow it. They ran after the beast as plasma bolts flew past them. The jungle closed behind them, thick and dark. But Jacob felt no fear. Because for the first time, the human, the alien, and the beast were no longer strangers. They were a pack. The warning. They ignored. 3 alien bodies lay silent on the jungle floor. Their strange gray, armor cracked and melted from the Carthul's fury. Blood mixed with the dark earth. Smoke still rose from the trees where blaster fire had burned leaves into ash. Jacob wiped mud from his face. We need to leave. More could be coming. Captain Arla stood over one of the bodies. She removed the attacker's helmet slowly. The face beneath was not like hers, not like Jacob's either. It was pale and long. 4 eyes, skin like rubber. It didn't match any species in the galactic records. Whoever they are, Arla said, they're not from this system. The Carthul stood beside Jacob, its breathing heavy, blood dripping from its claws, but its red eyes were calm, controlled. Jacob placed a hand on its thick fur. Good job, girl, he whispered. Arla watched the moment. It still made no sense, how something so deadly listened to a human so gently. They returned to the alien base the next morning. News had already reached the council. A security drone had followed them, recording everything. The ruins, the attackers, the Carthul saving them. The High Council was waiting. Arla stood tall in front of them, her voice steady. Unknown forces are entering our world. The Carthul protected us. It protected your officer. One of the elders sneered. And who brought it out of the cage? The human. Arla narrowed her eyes. Without the human, I'd be dead. So would dozens of your soldiers. The elder slammed his fist on the table. It's still a beast. It's not one of us. It doesn't need to be, Jacob replied calmly. It just needs to be trusted. Another elder spoke. You brought the beast to sacred ruins. That's forbidden. You broke code. Jacob stepped forward. Those ruins aren't just sacred to you. They hold the truth about your past and maybe your future. He dropped a small device on the table. It played a short hologram of the carvings from the stone wall. Humanoid figures standing beside the Carthul. Arla added, Your ancestors didn't fear the Carthul. They walked beside it. You turned them into monsters over time. Silence. Then the elder commander said coldly, The Carthul is still dangerous. The council has voted. We will remove it permanently, for safety. Jacob's face changed. You want to kill the one thing that's protecting your people? The elder said nothing. Jacob's fists clenched. You're making a mistake. The elder leaned forward. You are the mistake. Your kind doesn't belong here. Jacob stepped back. Then I'll leave, but she's coming with me. The beast? The elder laughed. It's not yours. I didn't own her, Jacob said. She chose me. As he turned to leave, Arla followed. But before the doors closed behind them, she looked back. I hope you remember this day, she said. Because when the next attack comes, you'll wish she was on your side. That night the skies over the jungle turned red. An alien warship appeared in orbit. No warning, no message. The same masked species had returned, this time with weapons far stronger than before. Their target. The alien city. Explosions shook the ground, towers fell. Fire rained from the sky. The defense forces were overwhelmed within minutes. Panic spread. The High Council sent soldiers to protect the council chamber. But it was too late. At the edge of the jungle, Jacob watched the sky burn. Beside him, the Karthul growled. It paced like a storm, eyes locked on the smoke in the distance. They didn't listen, Arla whispered. They never do, Jacob replied. He turned to the Karthul. Ready? The beast lowered its head, then let out a roar that shook the forest. Together, the three of them moved. They ran toward the fire. Back inside the city, the alien attackers began their ground invasion. Strange weapons vaporized everything in their path. The soldiers tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against the invaders' shields. Then, through the smoke, came a terrible sound. A roar, not from the invaders, but from the jungle. The Karthul leapt into battle like a living shadow. It tore through the enemy lines, crushing armor, tossing vehicles, breaking their formation. Jacob followed behind, shooting carefully. Arla covered him, her rifle blazing. The city had become a war zone, but now the war was changing. The alien citizens stared from behind wreckage. They had feared the Karthul their entire lives. Now it was saving them. From the burning council tower, the elder commander watched the chaos. One of the aides ran in. Sir, the Karthul, it's fighting for us. The elder stepped back, shocked. You tamed it? He asked aloud, even though no one was there to answer. Outside, Jacob climbed to a rooftop. He looked across the battlefield. The Karthul stood, tall, roaring into the night sky, soaked in alien blood, but alive, strong, and loyal. And the message was clear. The warning Jacob gave, they ignored it. Now they would have to earn the beast's protection, because she no longer fought for a cage, she fought for him. Hunted by their own monster flames still lit the sky hours after the attack. Buildings smoldered. Bodies were buried under broken towers. The air smelled like ash and burning metal. The warship above had vanished. The invaders had retreated. But they had left a message behind. We're not done. And in the middle of it all, the Karthul stood, silent, breathing hard, covered in burns and blood. It had saved the city, but the city didn't see it that way. Captain Arla and Jacob sat beside the Karthul at the edge of the ruins. Jacob was gently cleaning its wounds, rubbing a special healing gel into its cuts. She didn't need to fight, Arla said quietly. She chose to, Jacob replied. Even after they wanted her dead. Arla looked at him. You think she understands all that? Jacob glanced at the beast. She understands enough, more than most people here. Just then a military transport landed nearby. Dozens of soldiers stepped out, weapons ready. The High Council had arrived. The elder commander marched forward, his expression unreadable. His robes were torn, but his pride wasn't. You saved us, he said coldly. But the damage is done. What damage? Arla asked, standing. You brought the beast into the city, the elder growled. The people are afraid. Rumors are spreading. Some say it attacked. Others say it's still dangerous. Jacob stood, anger in his eyes. She saved your people. And now you want to punish her for it? We're placing her under lockdown, the elder said, for safety. The Carthel growled low. Dozens of guns clicked in response. She won't go back to a cage, Jacob said. And I won't let you take her. You don't have a choice, the elder snapped. She's not yours. No, Jacob said. She's not yours either. She's no one's prisoner. The soldiers stepped forward. The Carthel rose. Its red eyes glowed again, but not with rage. With warning. Jacob placed a hand on her back. Easy. Not yet. Arla looked at the elder commander. You're making a mistake again. She's the reason you're alive. She's also the reason we're divided. He spat. Fear spreads. Fast. Jacob turned to Arla. We have to leave. Now. Arla nodded. I'll cover you. The soldiers aimed, but before anyone could fire, the Carthel roared and leapt. Jacob and Arla disappeared into the smoke. They ran for days. Through burned forests, across cold rivers, into the forgotten canyons of the planet, where no one dared to go. There were no maps here. Only shadows and echoes. But the Carthel knew the way. It was her world, her wild. They slept in caves. They moved at night. Jacob fed her with hunted meat, cared for her wounds, spoke to her like an old friend. Arla watched everything. How does it trust you this much? She asked one night. Jacob poked at the fire. Because I never asked it to change. I just accepted her. Arla looked at the beast lying nearby, curled like a giant cat. When I was a child, we were told stories about her kind. How they dragged people into the jungle, how they tore ships apart. Some of that may be true, Jacob said. But maybe they only did it because they were hunted first. Arla was silent. Then she whispered, They'll never stop coming. For her. I know. And you'll keep running? I won't run, Jacob said, his voice low. I'll protect her. The next morning, drones found their trail. A fleet followed. More soldiers. More guns. The order was clear. Kill the beast. Bring the human back, dead or alive. The Carthel sensed them before anyone else. She growled once, short and sharp. Jacob looked up. They're coming. We don't have time, Arla said, pulling out her scanner. We're not going to fight them, Jacob said. We're going to show them. Show them what? That she's not the monster. He stood and walked. Into the open field beyond the canyon wall. The Carthel followed without hesitation. Arla stayed behind, hidden with her weapon ready. The ships landed. Dozens of soldiers formed a circle around the human and the beast. A speaker crackled. Step away from the creature, or we will fire. Jacob raised his hands. She won't hurt you, she never did. Lies, the voice replied. She's already killed. Only to protect. Jacob shouted back. She fights because you never gave her peace. The soldiers raised their guns. Arla's hands tightened on her trigger. Don't you dare, she whispered. Then, the unexpected happened. The Carthel lay down right in front of all the soldiers. Calm, still, peaceful. It rested its head on Jacob's leg like a loyal hound. The soldiers hesitated. They had expected a beast, not a friend. One by one, their guns lowered. The speaker said nothing. Inside the lead ship, the new commander stared at the screen. She wasn't like the elders. She saw something different, not fear, not violence, but trust. That night, the galaxy changed its story. The Carthel was no longer the hunted monster. It was the guardian. And the human, the one who refused to let go, was no longer seen as reckless. He was seen as right. The bond beyond. Species, the jungle was quiet again. For the first time in weeks, there were no explosions, no blaster fire, no shouts of fear. Just the sound of leaves dancing in the wind and the low breath of a resting beast. The Carthel lay curled beneath an ancient stone tree, eyes half closed. Its body was still healing from the last battle, its fur marked with scars that told stories of both fury and loyalty. Jacob sat nearby, sharpening a wooden spear. Captain Arla walked over, holding 2 cups of warm herbal brew. She handed one to Jacob, then sat beside him on the soft ground. "You know," she said quietly, "I never thought I'd sit this close to a Carthol and not feel afraid." Jacob smiled slightly. "I didn't think I'd ever be best friends with a 10-foot murder machine either." They both laughed softly. "But it's more than that," Arla continued. "She trusts you, follows you, would die for you. That's not just instinct. That's something deeper." Jacob nodded. "It's a bond, beyond species, beyond everything." They both looked at the Carthol, who opened one eye and gave a low chuff before closing it again like a sleepy cat. "She doesn't belong in a cage," Arla said. "She belongs in the stories." Jacob looked up at the stars. "Then let's give her a new story." The next day, Arla received a message on her communicator crystal. It wasn't from the High Council. It was from a group of scholars, ancient record keepers from a forgotten moon. They had seen the footage of Jacob and the Carthol. They were interested. They claimed to have records, old hidden scrolls from the time before the Great Wars. Arla and Jacob took the message seriously. Together with the Carthol, they traveled across a river of clouds and glowing stone fields until they reached the Archivist's moon, a quiet place filled with libraries built inside mountains. The scholars welcomed them with awe. No one had ever brought a living Carthol here. No one had ever dared. But the creature was calm, curious, just like her human. Inside the oldest hall, the head archivist, a wrinkled being with 6 eyes and a voice like falling leaves, showed them something unexpected, a painting carved into metal. It showed an ancient human tribe before Earth's records. They stood beside large creatures with eyes like fire, Carthols. The head archivist spoke. "You are not the first human. Your kind and hers have crossed paths before, long ago, when stars were still young." Arla stared at the metal. "Then it's true. Her species and yours were once connected." Jacob whispered, "Maybe they were more than allies. Maybe they were companions." Another scroll showed something even stranger. A ritual. Not a ritual of power, but of bonding. One human. One beast. A shared fire. A silent promise. They lived together, the archivist said. Not as master and pet, but as equals. Jacob placed his hand on the scroll. Then that bond is not gone, just forgotten. That night, Jacob lit a small fire in the temple courtyard. The Carthol sat in front of him. Arla watched silently from the steps. Jacob took a deep breath and pulled out a small object, a charm made of old earth steel. He had worn it around his neck for years. He placed it gently between himself and the Carthol. "I don't know if you understand words," he said softly, "but I want you to know something." The Carthol tilted its head. "I'm not your owner, not your leader. I'm just your friend, and if you ever walk away, I won't stop you. But as long as you want to stay." He reached out and touched her paw. "I'll stand beside you." The beast stared at him. Then she did something she had never done before. She leaned forward and gently touched her forehead to his. A deep rumble echoed in her chest. Not a growl, a purr. Arla blinked. "Is she bonding with you?" Jacob looked back, eyes wide. "I think she already did. A long time ago." The stars above shimmered, and the bond that had once been lost through centuries of fear and war was now whole again. Not because of power, not because of force, but because one human believed. The next morning, Arla received word. The High Council had been overthrown. The people had spoken. They wanted change. They wanted peace. And they wanted the beast that saved them to return, not as a prisoner, but as a symbol. Jacob smiled at the news. "Looks like they're ready to listen now." Arla grinned. "Then let's give them something worth remembering." She looked at the Carthol, no longer a monster, now a legend. The day it chose the human. The great plaza of Tarnus Prime had never been so full. Aliens of every kind, young and old, soldier and citizen, stood shoulder to shoulder, waiting in silence. Holograms hovered in the air, showing images of the beast. Statues were covered, cameras hovered high above. Today wasn't war. Today was history. At the center of it all, a path had been cleared. A silver platform had been built, surrounded by guards in ceremonial armor, not to protect the people from something, but to honor the one who had saved them all. Captain Arla stood at the edge of the stage, her armor polished, her scars visible. Beside her stood Jacob, wearing a simple earth-made jacket, dusty and worn. His eyes scanned the crowd, his expression calm, but inside he was nervous. "She's late," he whispered. Arla smirked. "She's a predator, Jacob. She arrives when she wants." Then, without warning, a wave of gasps rippled through the plaza. From the far end of the crowd, something moved. Large, silent, powerful. The Carthel stepped into the light. The crowd parted instantly. No one dared block her path. But this time, there was no fear, no screams, just awe. The beast walked slowly through the line of onlookers, her steps soft, her head held high. She reached the platform and stopped. For a moment, the world stood still, and then, without sound, without signal, she climbed the steps. She stood beside Jacob and looked out over the sea of people. Arla whispered, "She's never done this before." Jacob knelt slowly beside her. She turned her head and touched his shoulder gently with her massive forehead. The crowd gasped again. Not in fear, in understanding. An elder, now part of the new council, stepped forward. He raised his voice. "Let this day be known forever in our records. The day our greatest fear became our greatest protector, and the day a human taught us that monsters are not born, they are made." He turned toward Jacob and the beast. And this creature, once locked in a cage, chose freedom. But more than that, she chose him. The Carthel stood proudly beside Jacob as the crowd erupted into thunderous cheers. It was not just applause. It was acceptance. That night, Arla stood with Jacob at the edge of the city. Below them, the lights of Tarnus Prime flickered like stars. "You could stay," Arla said. "They want to build a new alliance with you at the center." Jacob smiled. "I don't belong in cities." "And her? She belongs where the sky is open." Arla nodded. "Where will you go?" Jacob looked out into the dark horizon. "Wherever she leads." Suddenly the Carthel growled low, but not in warning. She had sensed something. She turned west, toward the wild lands beyond the known maps. Jacob followed her gaze. "You feel it too," he said. Arla raised an eyebrow. "Feel what?" "There's more out there. Maybe more like her, maybe more ruins, maybe more truths." He turned to Arla. "You coming?" She blinked. "You're inviting me on a jungle adventure?" Jacob laughed. "You kept up last time." She looked at the city once more, then back at him. "I'll pack my blaster." And so they walked again, though human, the alien girl and the beast once feared by all, not as fugitives, not as enemies, but as a family, tied by loyalty, by courage, and by the choice they made to walk side by side. They disappeared into the dark, wild land once again. The world behind them would write songs and build statues. But the truth? The truth was simpler. The beast chose the human, and he chose her right back.